The first warning came at 3:47 Universal Standard Time. Orbital monitoring stations picked up the quantum signature of massive faster-than-light drives breaching the solar system's outer defensive perimeter. Most of humanity slept, unaware that the moment of first contact had arrived. Deep in the mountain command center beneath Colorado Springs, the atmosphere remained calm. Screens flickered with incoming data, translating the alien approach into a language of numbers, trajectories, and spectral analyses. General Miranda Thompson stood perfectly still, her posture a study in controlled tension. "Confirm contact," she said quietly to Major David Chen, her lead tactical coordinator. Chen's fingers danced across holographic interfaces, pulling apart the incoming data with surgical precision. "Verified," he responded. "Zarn Collective. Approximately 3,742 capital ships, with an estimated 12,000 support and fighter-class vessels. Total fleet mass suggests complete system subjugation capability." A holographic representation of the incoming fleet materialized in the center of the command room. Each ship was a marvel of alien engineering, crystalline structures that defied traditional understanding of spacecraft design, pulsing with energy signatures that would have terrified less prepared civilizations. The room held no panic, no fear, just cold, calculated readiness. "Transmission incoming," announced Lieutenant Samantha Roberts, her voice steady. The main screen flickered, revealing the alien ambassador. Krelltax was a nightmare of biological engineering, a creature that seemed part insectoid, part reptilian, with multiple sets of eyes that shifted color as it spoke. The translation systems kicked in, converting the complex click and chirp language into human speech. "Inhabitants of the third planet," the ambassador began, "your civilization has been evaluated. Your technological development, while marginally interesting, remains primitive. The Zarn Collective hereby issues a non-negotiable directive of planetary surrender. You will provide full resource access, submit to collective governance, and prepare for immediate occupation." A pregnant pause filled the command center. General Thompson stepped forward, her reflection crisp in the massive display screen. Behind her, a series of tactical boards told a story the Zarn couldn't see. Orbital defense platforms charged with experimental quantum-locked energy systems. Ground-based antimatter cannons brought online but carefully masked from external scans. A global network of adaptive defense satellites that looked like nothing more than standard communication infrastructure. "Ambassador Krelltax," Thompson began, her voice carrying the weight of centuries of human survival instinct, "I want to ensure I understand your communication correctly." The alien's multiple eyes blinked in a pattern that might have been confusion or anticipation. "You're suggesting," she continued, "that we should simply surrender our entire planet, our entire species' autonomy, without any form of resistance." A series of clicks emerged from the translator. What might have been alien laughter. "Your resistance is mathematically impossible," Krelltax responded. "We have conquered civilizations thousands of years more advanced than your own. Your planetary defenses are inconsequential. Your technological capabilities are." General Thompson interrupted, a slight smile crossing her face. "Inconsequential." The command center around her was a hive of controlled activity. Major Chen was updating defensive algorithms. Lieutenant Roberts was routing communication channels. Every person moved with the precision of a well-oiled machine, each action part of a strategy decades in the making. "Ambassador," Thompson said, her tone almost conversational, "I believe you've made a significant miscalculation." The Zarn ambassador's color-shifting eyes narrowed. A universal gesture of confusion that transcended biological differences. "We are not asking for your permission," General Thompson continued. "We are informing you of a simple fact. You want combat. Prepare for devastation." In that moment, humanity revealed nothing. But everything was already in motion. The solar system, quiet, seemingly defenseless, waited. The underground research facility stretched beneath the Nevada desert like a subterranean metropolis. Dr. Jack Reynolds moved through corridors that hummed with barely contained potential, each step accompanied by the soft pulse of advanced technological ecosystems. Hundreds of meters below the surface, humanity's most advanced research teams worked in perfect synchronization. This wasn't just a research center. It was the culmination of decades of paranoid preparation, black budget funding, and the collective human determination to be ready for anything the universe might throw their way. "Quantum interface stabilizing," muttered Dr. Elena Rodriguez, her fingers dancing across holographic displays that seemed to breathe with living information. Around her, a team of researchers from every conceivable background worked seamlessly. Theoretical physicists stood shoulder to shoulder with materials engineers, computer scientists collaborated with xenobiologists, and neural network specialists traded insights with quantum mechanics experts. The facility's primary project defied traditional understanding of technological development. What appeared to be simple data centers were actually living, breathing computational networks that could adapt, learn, and transform faster than any known alien technology. Dr. Reynolds approached a massive containment chamber. Inside, what looked like liquid metal shifted and responded to invisible commands. This was more than a research project. It was the embodiment of human innovation. Adaptive response protocols are at 97.3% optimization, announced Dr. Rodriguez. The molecular reconfiguration matrix is now capable of instantaneous structural transformation across 12-dimensional computational models. A younger researcher, Marcus Williams, looked up from his station. Translation for those of us who aren't quantum computing geniuses. Dr. Reynolds chuckled. "We've built a system that can literally reshape itself faster than an enemy can comprehend its existing form. Imagine a weapon that becomes something entirely different the moment it's analyzed." The facility was a testament to humanity's greatest strength, its ability to innovate under pressure. Each research team represented a different approach to the potential alien threat. One group focused on communication disruption technologies. Another developed materials that could absorb and redirect energy in ways that defied current scientific understanding. Deep in the most secure section of the facility, a series of experimental propulsion systems stood ready. These weren't just spacecraft engines. They were potential game-changers in interstellar conflict. Quantum entanglement drives that could potentially move vessels between points of space faster than light could travel. Energy containment systems that could turn a defensive platform into an offensive nightmare. "Preliminary tests on the quantum resonance shielding are complete," announced Dr. Sarah Kim, her voice cutting through the ambient technological hum. "We can now theoretically create a defensive barrier that adapts its molecular structure faster than incoming weapons can analyze it." Dr. Reynolds nodded, his eyes scanning the massive holographic displays that mapped potential conflict scenarios. Each projection was a complex dance of predictive algorithms, running millions of potential alien attack strategies every second. "The Zarn think they understand technological superiority," he muttered. "They have no idea what we've been preparing." A series of automated systems began to sync. Orbital defense platforms, ground-based weapon systems, and the underground research facility entered a state of perfect quantum alignment. Millions of adaptive nanite networks prepared to activate, each one a potential weapon, each one capable of transforming the moment it was confronted. The younger researchers watched in a mixture of awe and anticipation. This wasn't just a defense mechanism. It was the culmination of human potential. Every breakthrough, every late-night research session, every seemingly impossible idea that had been dismissed by conventional thinking was now coming together. "System readiness at 100%, announced the facility's central computer, a machine that was more an ecosystem of interconnected intelligences than a traditional computational device. Dr. Rodriguez looked at Dr. Reynolds. No words were necessary. They both understood what was coming. Humanity had spent decades preparing for this moment, not out of fear, but out of a fundamental understanding that in the universe's grand design, preparedness was the ultimate weapon. The facility continued its silent hum, waiting, Ready. The first plasma torpedo arrived with the fury of a small sun. Its energy signature alone could vaporize most planetary defenses, a weapon designed to crack open civilizations and leave nothing but radioactive dust in its wake. Lieutenant Commander Rebecca Chen watched from the Orbital Defense Control Center. Her hands never trembled. Her breath remained steady. Around her, a network of human operators worked with machine-like precision, each movement calculated, each response instantaneous. Incoming primary assault wave, announced Major David Rodriguez. Multiple high-energy projectiles detected. Zarn first strike protocol in progress. The alien weapon approached with terrifying speed. Any other civilization would have already been reduced to ash. The Zarn Collective had perfected this strategy across dozens of conquered worlds. Their weapons didn't just destroy, they obliterated. But humanity was different. The first plasma torpedo encountered something entirely unexpected. As it approached Earth's orbital defensive perimeter, the space around it began to shimmer. Nanite networks, invisible to traditional scanning methods, materialized like a living membrane. These weren't simple defensive systems. They were adaptive, intelligent constructs that could analyze, predict, and counter threats in microseconds. The plasma torpedo's energy was suddenly redirected, not absorbed, not deflected, transformed. Energy conversion at 92% efficiency, Chen reported, her voice clinical. Redirecting excess plasma to auxiliary power grid. The Zarn fleet watched in collective disbelief as their most devastating weapon became a source of power for the very civilization they sought to destroy. More torpedoes followed. Waves of destructive energy that had reduced countless civilizations to cosmic dust now found themselves transformed. Some were converted into raw energy. Others were systematically dismantled at the molecular level, their component particles scattered and repurposed. Colonel Marcus Williams monitored the global defensive network. Underground facilities that appeared to be nothing more than standard infrastructure now revealed their true purpose. Quantum-locked energy cannons emerged from seemingly innocuous locations. Satellite networks that looked like standard communication arrays transformed into intricate defensive platforms. Secondary wave incoming, announced a junior officer. The Zarn fleet adjusted its strategy. If direct energy weapons failed, they would overwhelm through sheer numbers. Thousands of smaller strike craft began their approach, each designed to penetrate planetary defenses through overwhelming force. They discovered humanity's second surprise. The defensive network wasn't just a system. It was a living, breathing organism of technological innovation. Swarms of autonomous interceptors materialized, not from predetermined launch points, but seemingly from nowhere. Each interceptor was a marvel of adaptive engineering. They didn't just destroy incoming threats, they learned from each interaction. A Zarn strike craft would approach. Within milliseconds, the human defensive systems would analyze its structural composition, energy signature, and potential attack vectors. The next interceptor would be perfectly configured to neutralize that specific threat. Adaptive response protocol at maximum efficiency, Chen reported. The space around Earth transformed into a ballet of technological warfare. Zarn vessels found themselves facing opponents that changed faster than they could comprehend. Weapons that worked perfectly. The war wasn't just happening in space. The most intricate battle raged through communication spectrums, digital channels, and the very fabric of information itself. Colonel Aisha Rodriguez sat in a command center that looked more like an artist's studio than a military installation. Massive holographic displays surrounded her, each one a living map of communication networks, psychological profiles, and real-time linguistic algorithms. Target: Zarn communication infrastructure, she spoke softly to her team. Primary objective: complete systemic disruption. The team was a carefully curated blend of talents. Linguistic experts sat beside quantum computer specialists. Psychologists worked alongside network engineers. Cultural anthropologists collaborated with machine learning experts. This wasn't just a military unit. It was a weaponized understanding of communication itself. Dr. Emily Chen, the team's lead cognitive warfare specialist, began the first phase of their attack. The Zarn Collective communicated through a complex system of quantum-encrypted channels, a network they believed was impenetrable. Humanity saw it differently. Initiating linguistic deconstruction, Chen announced. The attack wasn't about breaking encryption. It was about understanding. Every communication channel became a canvas of psychological manipulation. The team didn't just intercept messages, they rewrote the very context of communication. Zarn military channels began to receive transmissions that were technically perfect, but psychologically devastating. Messages that played on deep-seated cultural fears. Communication packets that introduced subtle doubt into their collective decision-making processes. To the Zarn, their communication network was a perfect machine. To the human team, it was a living organism that could be systematically dismantled through understanding. "We're not destroying their communication," Dr. Chen explained to a junior team member. "We're rewriting their understanding of communication itself." Quantum-encrypted channels became labyrinths of misdirection. Each message was a carefully crafted piece of psychological warfare. The Zarn found themselves receiving transmissions that were technically flawless, but increasingly destabilizing. Military command structures began to fracture. Doubt spread faster than any physical weapon could travel. Major David Rodriguez monitored the larger strategic picture. "Their communication networks are breaking down," he reported. "We're introducing complexity faster than they can process it." The team had spent years studying the Zarn Collective. Not just their technology, but their psychological makeup. Every transmission was a precision instrument, designed to exploit specific cultural and biological vulnerabilities. For the species that made up the Zarn Collective, communication was more than an exchange of information. It was the primary method of maintaining their hierarchical society. By introducing complexity, uncertainty, and calculated misinformation, the human team was doing more damage than any physical weapon could achieve. "Quantum entanglement communication nodes are destabilizing," announced a junior specialist. Colonel Rodriguez allowed herself a slight smile. This was warfare at its most sophisticated level. They weren't just fighting. They were systematically dismantling an entire civilization's understanding of information itself. Zarn military commanders found their encrypted channels filled with transmissions that were simultaneously perfect and impossible. Messages that contained absolutely correct technical information, but introduced layers of psychological complexity that defied straightforward interpretation. "It's like they're speaking our language," one Zarn communication officer reported, "but the meaning keeps shifting." Dr. Chen understood something fundamental about communication that the Zarn did not. Information was not just about content. It was about context, meaning, interpretation. The human team was rewriting the very rules of communication. Across the Zarn Collective, command structures began to crack, not through direct conflict, but through the systematic introduction of complexity. Each transmission was a weapon. Each message a strategic tool designed to introduce doubt, uncertainty, and psychological fracture. "We're not just fighting," Colonel Rodriguez muttered. "We're teaching them a lesson about communication." The psychological battlefield continued its silent, devastating assault, and the Zarn Collective had no idea how to fight back. Dr. Kyle Bennett's laboratory was a crucible of impossible innovation. Captured Zarn technology lay dissected across quantum-stabilized examination tables, each piece a puzzle waiting to be reimagined. "This isn't reverse engineering," Bennett explained to his team. "This is complete technological transformation." The room buzzed with a carefully controlled energy. Researchers from every conceivable scientific discipline worked in perfect synchronization. Quantum physicists stood alongside materials engineers. Xenobiologists collaborated with advanced computational specialists. Each team member understood something fundamental. Technology was not a static product, but a living, evolving process. A massive holographic display showed the molecular structure of a Zarn energy weapon. Where other species would see a completed technological marvel, The human team saw infinite possibilities. Dr. Sarah Rodriguez approached the display, her fingers tracing invisible lines of potential modification. "Notice how their energy containment system relies on a three-dimensional quantum lock," she announced. "We can expand that to a 12-dimensional adaptive matrix." The Zarn had spent centuries perfecting their technological systems. Humanity would deconstruct and reimagine them in weeks. Metamaterial reconfiguration at 73% completion announced a computational system that was more an ecosystem of interconnected intelligences than a traditional computer. What looked like liquid metal began to shift and reshape. A Zarn energy weapon gradually transformed, its molecular structure becoming something entirely new. It wasn't just modified. It was fundamentally reimagined. Dr. Bennett understood the true nature of human innovation. Technology wasn't about maintaining existing systems. It was about constant, relentless transformation. Their fastest communication networks use quantum entanglement, he explained to a junior researcher. "We're developing systems that don't just use quantum entanglement. We're creating communication networks that can reshape quantum states in real time." The laboratory represented humanity's most significant weapon, not the physical tools of destruction, but the ability to understand, deconstruct, and completely reimagine technological systems. Across the facility, other teams worked on equally impossible projects. One group developed materials that could change their molecular structure faster than an enemy could analyze them. Another team created adaptive energy systems that could transform incoming weapon energy into usable power in microseconds. "We're not just defending," Dr. Rodriguez muttered. "We're evolving." Each captured piece of Zarn technology became a lesson. Quantum communication networks were completely redesigned. Energy containment systems were transformed into adaptive, living technologies that could predict and counter potential threats before they materialized. The Zarn believed in technological perfection. Humanity understood that true innovation was about constant transformation. A junior researcher approached Dr. Bennett with a captured Zarn propulsion system. What would have taken most species decades to understand, the human team was breaking down and reimagining in hours. Their faster-than-light drive relies on a quantum compression method, the researcher explained. "We can expand that concept into a multi-dimensional transportation network." Dr. Bennett nodded. This wasn't just about understanding alien technology. This was about completely reimagining the fundamental concepts of technological development. Across the facility, impossible things were happening. Materials that could change their properties instantaneously. Communication networks that existed in multiple quantum states simultaneously. Energy systems that could transform incoming weapon energy into computational power. The Zarn Collective had conquered countless civilizations through technological superiority. They had never encountered a species that didn't just adapt to technology, but saw it as a living, breathing entity that could be completely transformed. Technological adaptation protocols at maximum efficiency announced the facility's central system. Dr. Rodriguez looked at Dr. Bennett. No words were necessary. They both understood what was happening. Humanity wasn't just preparing for a conflict. They were rewriting the fundamental understanding of technological development. The laboratory continued its silent work, waiting, transforming, evolving. The communication networks of the Zarn Collective began to unravel like a complex tapestry caught in a cosmic wind. What had once been an impenetrable system of control now revealed its fundamental weakness, the delicate balance of power maintained through psychological manipulation. Admiral Krulvac studied the incoming reports with mounting dread. The human assault wasn't just a military engagement, it was a systematic deconstruction of everything the collective believed about power, communication, and technological superiority. Subspace communication channels began to light up with unexpected transmissions. Whispers of rebellion emerged from species long suppressed under the Zarn Collective's iron grip. The Morigen, a silicon-based species from the Crimson Nebula, were the first to break silence. "We have observed the human resistance," their communication burst read. For the first time, we see a potential path to liberation. General Miranda Thompson reviewed the intelligence reports in the underground command center. Major David Rodriguez stood beside her, a holographic display showing the rapidly changing galactic political landscape. "They're not just fighting," Rodriguez observed. "They're inspiring." The human strategy was brutally elegant. Every communication, every defensive action was designed to do more than just resist. It was engineered to demonstrate the possibility of resistance to other subjugated species. On a distant mining colony, the Krelthuri workers, a species that had served the Zarn Collective for generations, began to ask questions they had never dared to voice before. Their communication networks, long monitored and controlled, suddenly found unexpected pathways of information. Dr. Elena Chen, leading the Psychological Warfare Division, understood the deeper strategy. "We're not just fighting a war," she explained to her team. "We're dismantling a system of control." The Zarn Collective's communication infrastructure became a battlefield of information. Encrypted channels that once maintained perfect control now became conduits of doubt, possibility, and potential rebellion. Admiral Krelvax watched in horror as reports flooded in. Colonies that had been perfectly controlled for generations were now showing signs of unexpected resistance. The Morrigan had not just observed, they were actively sharing tactical information with the humans. "This is impossible," Krelvax muttered to his communication officers. But impossibility was a luxury the collective could no longer afford. The human strategy targeted the fundamental weakness of the collective's power structure. It wasn't about military might. It was about breaking the psychological chains of control. On the edge of the Crimson Nebula, the Morrigan began to modify their own defensive systems. They were learning from the human resistance, not just copying, but adapting. Understanding. General Thompson's strategy was clear: divide, inform, liberate. Communication channels became living things. Information flowed like water, finding cracks in the previously impenetrable system of control. Species that had been subjugated for generations began to see themselves differently. The Zarn Collective had conquered through a combination of technological superiority and psychological control. Humanity was systematically dismantling both. Dr. Rodriguez analyzed the emerging communication patterns. "We're not just fighting," he observed. "We're teaching." Rebellion spread faster than any physical weapon could travel. It moved through communication networks, through shared moments of possibility, through the simple demonstration that resistance was possible. Admiral Krelvax received a transmission that chilled him to his core. The Krelthuri mining colonies were no longer responding to standard control protocols. Worse, they were actively sharing tactical information with human communication networks. The collective's perfect system of control was unraveling. "This is more than a war," General Thompson muttered to her team. "This is a revolution." The space around Earth continued to shimmer with defensive systems, but the real battle was happening in the realm of information, possibility, and hope. The Zarn Collective had never encountered a species that understood power so fundamentally. A species that knew true strength wasn't about control. It was about inspiration. Humanity was rewriting the rules of conflict. The battle for solar system supremacy transformed space itself into a canvas of technological warfare. Earth's defensive perimeter extended far beyond traditional understanding, a living membrane of adaptive technological ecosystems that redefined the very concept of planetary defense. General Miranda Thompson watched from the underground command center as the final confrontation took shape. The space around humanity's home planet shimmered with potential, each cubic centimeter a complex network of defensive and offensive capabilities. "Incoming primary assault wave," announced Major David Rodriguez. His voice remained calm, clinical, a reflection of the calculated preparedness that had defined humanity's approach. The Zarn Collective's remaining fleet approached in what they believed was an overwhelming formation. Thousands of ships, each a testament to centuries of technological development, converged on the solar system. They had conquered civilizations across multiple star clusters. They had reduced worlds to cosmic dust. They had never encountered humanity. The first wave of Zarn vessels found themselves facing something entirely unexpected. Defensive platforms that weren't just static systems, but living, breathing technological organisms. Each platform could analyze, predict, and counter threats faster than the aliens could comprehend. Dr. Kyle Bennett, watching from the research facility, understood the deeper strategy. "We're not just defending," he muttered to his team. "We're teaching." Quantum-locked energy cannons emerged from locations that moments before had appeared to be nothing more than standard infrastructure. Satellite networks transformed from communication arrays into intricate defensive platforms. The entire solar system became a single, interconnected defensive mechanism. The Zarn fleet's initial assault met with a response that defied their understanding of warfare. Incoming energy weapons found themselves redirected, transformed, absorbed. Plasma torpedoes that could vaporize entire planetary surfaces were systematically dismantled at the molecular level. "Energy conversion at 96% efficiency," reported a tactical officer, redirecting excess plasma to auxiliary power grids. For every Zarn vessel destroyed, 2 more seemed to materialize. But these were fundamentally different. They moved with an intelligence that transcended traditional combat systems. Each ship was part of a greater network, sharing information, adapting, learning. Colonel Aisha Rodriguez managed the communication warfare aspect of the confrontation. While physical defenses repelled the Zarn assault, her team continued to systematically destabilize their communication infrastructure. "Psychological disruption protocols at maximum efficiency," she reported. The space around Earth transformed into a ballet of technological innovation. Autonomous interceptors materialized from seemingly nowhere, each one a marvel of adaptive engineering. They didn't just destroy incoming threats, they learned from each interaction, becoming more effective with every encounter. Admiral Krulvax watched in mounting horror as his fleet's most sophisticated attack strategies became useless. The human defensive systems changed faster than they could be analyzed. Weapons that had worked perfectly in previous conquests became obsolete within moments. "This is impossible," Krulvax muttered. But impossibility was a luxury the Zarn collective could no longer afford. The additional species that had begun to resist the collective's control now joined the confrontation. The Morrigan provided tactical support, their silicon-based technologies interfacing with human defensive systems in ways that defied previous understanding of technological collaboration. Dr. Elena Chen observed the larger strategic picture. "We're not just fighting," she explained to her team. "We're demonstrating the power of collaborative innovation." Each moment of the confrontation became a lesson, not just in military strategy, but in the fundamental nature of technological development. The Zarn had believed in technological perfection. Humanity understood that true innovation was about constant transformation. The solar system's defensive network wasn't just responding to the Zarn assault. It was learning, evolving, transforming. General Thompson watched the tactical displays with a calm that belied the magnitude of the moment. This wasn't just a defense of Earth. This was a demonstration of humanity's potential. "They thought we were primitive," she muttered to Major Rodriguez. Rodriguez nodded. They were wrong. As the final confrontation reached its peak, the space around Earth became a living testament to human innovation, not through overwhelming force, but through adaptive intelligence, through the ability to understand, transform, and evolve faster than any threat could comprehend. The Zarn collective had conquered countless civilizations. They had never encountered humanity. The aftermath of the conflict was unlike any previous moment in galactic history. The remnants of the Zarn collective drifted in space like broken memories, a testament to humanity's unprecedented technological and strategic capabilities. General Miranda Thompson stood on the observation deck of the International Cooperative Station, watching the reconstruction efforts. The station itself was a marvel of collaborative engineering, a structure that represented something far more profound than a simple diplomatic outpost. "We're not building an empire," she explained to the assembled representatives from dozens of recently liberated species. We're creating a framework for mutual understanding. Dr. Elena Chen approached with a holographic display showing the intricate networks of communication and technological exchange that were rapidly developing. What had begun as a defensive action was transforming into something far more significant. The Morrigan delegation, their silicon-based forms shimmering with adaptive technologies learned from human interactions, presented their first collaborative proposal. Where other species might have seen a potential threat, they saw a partnership of unprecedented potential. Technological exchange is not about superiority, their lead representative communicated. It's about collective growth. Major David Rodriguez reviewed the initial reports from the liberated colonies. The psychological impact of the conflict went far beyond military victory. Species that had been subjugated for generations were now exploring their own potential, their own capabilities. Dr. Kyle Bennett's research teams were already working on collaborative technological development programs. The captured Zarn technologies weren't being hoarded. They were being shared, studied, and reimagined by a diverse coalition of species. Our greatest weapon, Bennett explained to a group of young researchers, was never our technology. It was our ability to understand, adapt, and collaborate. The interstellar cooperative began to take shape. It wasn't a government in the traditional sense. It was a living network of communication, technological exchange, and mutual protection. Each species contributed its unique capabilities, creating a framework that was greater than the sum of its parts. Admiral Krelvax, the former Zarn military leader, now served as a diplomatic advisor. His role was a testament to the transformative nature of the conflict. Those who had been enemies were now working together to build something entirely new. We misunderstood the fundamental nature of progress, Krelvax admitted during one of the first cooperative councils. Technological development is not about conquest, it's about understanding. The solar system became a beacon of possibility. Earth was no longer just a planet. It was a hub of innovation, a place where different species could come together to explore their collective potential. Colonel Aisha Rodriguez led the communication exchange programs. The psychological warfare techniques that had been so effective during the conflict were now being applied to diplomatic and cultural understanding. Each communication was an opportunity for growth, for breaking down barriers. The liberated mining colonies of the Krell-Thuri began developing their first independent technological systems. Their initial designs showed clear influences from human innovation, adaptable, collaborative, focused on collective potential rather than individual superiority. We're rewriting the rules of galactic interaction, General Thompson explained during a strategic planning session. Not through force, but through understanding. The Zarn Collective's communication networks, once a tool of oppression, were being transformed into open information platforms. Species that had been isolated for generations now found themselves part of a broader, more interconnected galactic community. Dr. Sarah Rodriguez, leading the Xenocultural Integration Team, developed comprehensive exchange programs. These weren't just diplomatic missions, they were opportunities for mutual understanding, for breaking down the barriers that had separated species for generations. The first joint research stations began to take shape. Quantum physicists from Earth worked alongside silicon-based researchers from the Morrigan colonies. Computational experts from previously subjugated species collaborated on technologies that defied previous understanding. Admiral Krelvax watched the collaborative efforts with a sense of profound transformation. We thought power was about control, he reflected. Humanity showed us that true strength is about potential. As the first year of the interstellar cooperative came to a close, the galaxy looked different. Not conquered, not dominated, but connected, evolving, filled with possibility. Humanity had done more than defend itself. It had reimagined the very concept of galactic civilization. The universe continued to expand, and with it, the potential for understanding.